To Dr. Verrett and the Board of Trustees of Xavier University, Sonia Perez, Board Chairwoman, and Judge Ivan Lamel, Trustee, let me thank you for inviting me to deliver the 2017 commencement address. And Dr. Verrett, I heard loud and clear, and I want the graduates to also hear loud and clear that you said with the conferring of the degree came obligations. I guess that means alumni dues. I get it, and I will send a check. Let me first take care of a few housekeeping notes. And one, I want to recognize some old friends, and many people don't know this, but one of the kids I mentored for a very long time came to Xavier University and played basketball from Goretti Playground, named Michael Venata. So for 4 years, I had the privilege of sitting in the barn watching basketball games next to the First Lady of Xavier, Mrs. Francis, and Sister Grace, who is, if you think she's hard on students, you should hear how hard she is on a basketball coach. So thank you so much for those 4 years of entertainment and fun, and the guidance that you give to the students of Xavier as a counselor and guidance officer. So thank you. Also I have a former intern that's graduating today, Khalil Shanks. And then we have an extended family member, Ashley Adams, that's also graduating today. So congratulations to both of you all. And to the Xavier community and Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. To the graduates, let me just say, welcome to the real world. Let me also just say, it's overrated and not as exciting as you think it is. Because what comes with the real world are real obligations, including alumni dues. To all the parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, sisters, brothers, cousins, all who supported this class, or encouraged them, or challenged them, or disciplined them, or loved them, or even changed their diapers. Congratulations to you too, because this is also your day. Well, in full disclosure, let me just say that when Dr. Verrett invited me to speak, I said, I don't know if Dr. Verrett really understands what he's getting himself into. I said, when you think of graduations from very prestigious universities like Xavier University, you think of philosophers and scholars that will come and that will quote Socrates or Aristotle or Plato and say uplifting words with rhythmic deliverance and poetry and all of that. And he just didn't order that today when he asked me to be the graduation speaker. What he got was a little kid from New Orleans East that will probably quote Biggie, Tupac, or Lil Weezy. So, Mr. President, I just hope the board still has full faith and confidence in you when I'm done. But for the graduates, before I give you a charge or tell you what we expect from you, or that those things they say at graduation, the sky's the limit, this is just the beginning, and the world is what you make of it. Before we go in all that, let me just tell you a little bit about what they don't tell you about me, so that you will understand that if I could get this far, the sky really is the limit for you. But I am who I am. I'm a kid that was born in New Orleans East. I still live in New Orleans East. I went to Osborne for elementary school. I went to Livingston for junior high school. I went to St. Aug, Kennedy, and Ben Franklin for high school. You know, I got invited to go to some great, great institutions. I got invited to leave some great, great institutions. And my 1 year at St. Aug was a great time for me, except my mother said, I'm not gonna pay for you to go and make grades like that. But that's who I am. At 7, you heard that my father died. My mother was a public school teacher. Public school teachers sacrifice and do great work and shape the minds of millions of Americans. But what she did, when my father died, I was 7, my brother was 9, and it cemented for me, which I still know to this day, is that life's not fair. But so what? You have to keep going. My mother didn't have the luxury to give up at 33 with 2 bad little boys and say, what am I gonna do? She just had to do it. And the good thing about what we had back then was we had an excellent recreation department. And I stayed right across the street from Goretti Playground. And she was able to say, when you get home from school, do your homework, go across the street to practice, and then when I get home, I'll feed you all and we'll start the day all over again. And being at Goretti Playground, I realized that I met so many coaches that I didn't realize it, but those coaches became mentors. And those coaches, both black and white, loved us at the playground. But what they would do is, when we needed a hug, they would give us a hug. When we needed support, they would lift us up and give us support. And when we needed a kick in the behind, they would give us that. And my coaches gave the kick in the behind to me more often than the love and the support. But I realized at 16, when they called me in, they said, Cedric, you're 16, you're in high school now, you're doing great. But you see that group of knuckleheads over there, those 13-year-olds? I said, yes. They said, well, that's your team now. You have to coach. And I started coaching that 13-year-old team. And I realized that I was teaching those kids, and I was also learning from them all at the same time. And then I learned that, you know what? A lot of kids just need a little support, and they need a little guidance. And then I started realizing that they looked up to me. So I needed to stop the silliness and the other stuff, but if I wanted to focus on them, I had to do a lot better. So when it was time to go to college, I only applied to one, and that was Morehouse. And Dr. Verrett, I didn't apply to Xavier because it was too close and my parents could pop up. But Morehouse was 6 hours away, and that was just far enough that they couldn't pop up and just close enough that if I really needed them, they could be there. So while at Morehouse, I continued to coach, come home every summer and coach. And then when I finished Morehouse, I had to make a decision. Where would I go to law school? I said, well, I'm going home for law school because I want to continue to be in the lives of those little leaguers that I was coaching at the time. And Tulane's colors were a lot cooler than Loyola's colors. So I applied to one law school and one law school only. I went through my whole life applying to 2 schools. So I came back and I went to Tulane and I started coaching a group of 7-year-olds. And I realized when I finished that we had won the world championship in basketball. We won the city championship in baseball. And every penny that went to their uniforms or for our travel came either from my student loans or from my mother. And people always say, our children are our future. Well, if you believe it, put your money where your mouth is. So while at the dinner table complaining to my mother about what I realized, my mother and my stepfather said, well, you're smart, do something about it. And that was a challenge that I took to heart. So at 26, fresh out of law school, I ran for office. But what I realized is that those 10 years I spent coaching at Goretti Playground was actually doing public service already. And when I knocked on doors and asked people to vote for me, they all said yes. And then I won. I'll tell you this, for probably the 4 years after that, Goretti probably had the best uniforms and bags than any playground in the United States of America. But what I realized is that you don't have the luxury to see something that's not working and do nothing about it. We have an obligation to speak out. We have an obligation to act. We have an obligation to make a difference. So I'll just tell you that, I was elected to the United States Congress in 2010. This last year, I was elected to lead the Congressional Black Caucus, which is 49 members, 2 U.S. senators, 47 House members, and we represent 78 million Americans. Now, if you just want further proof that life is not fair, I thought I would be getting elected Congressional Black Caucus chair at the same time we would have our first female president, and we would be doing a bunch of great things. I didn't realize I would be getting elected Congressional Black Caucus chair and spending every waking moment chasing my 3-year-old son and 45. But the question goes back to what my mother said. What are you going to do about it? And I would just advise you all to keep watching and looking and watching CNN and watching our tweets at official CBC to see what we're going to do. But the question today is not about what I'm going to do. The question is about what you're going to do. I know you all are smart because you're at Xavier University. And in a few minutes, you're going to join me as being an HBCU grad, a Xavier grad. So we know you have the intellectual capacity to do great things because Xavier is one of the best schools in the nation. And notice I didn't say one of these best HBCUs. It's one of the best institutions in the country. So you have the intellect, and you also have the courage, the persistence, and the determination. You know how I know that? Because you survived the HBCU. Think about it. Registration, patience, persistence, and determination. Financial aid, patience, persistence, and determination. In my days, I would have said the cafeteria, but that's a whole different story. And now, you all have it kind of good. I just want to say that you all can't complain about that one. Talk to some people who have been here, done that, before you complain about the food or the facilities as we sit in this beautiful building. So we know you have that, but the question becomes, do you have the commitment to, 1, give back, and 2, to sacrifice and risk? What I want you to do for a moment is just turn your heads, look around at the people that are sitting in the stands here on your special day. Because the people you see in the stands, those are your loved ones who sacrificed and gave up the finer things so that you could pursue your dreams. They're the loved ones who gave up some of the basic necessities, like meals, so that you could feed your mind. Look around. Those loved ones are the ones who work long and hard with their hands and on their feet so that you can work with your brain. Look around. They're the ones who worked overtime so that you could have computers, iPads, and iPhones. So what I want you to do is please give those loved ones a big round of applause like you know they deserve it. And I won't be much longer because the one thing I do know, and I was not a physics major. In fact, I ran from physics. I took physics at Spelman because it was easier than physics at Morehouse. And the environment looked a lot nicer. But often, but the physics part is, the mind can only absorb what the behind can withstand. So I won't be much longer. I'm here to tell you also today that you're not what we like to say the next generation of leaders. You're the current generation of leaders. If you look back through history, people who changed the world, many people did it at your age or younger. If you think back to the civil rights movement and think of Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner, who were killed in Philadelphia, Mississippi, trying to register African Americans to vote during Freedom Summer, they were 20, 21, and 24 years of age. Many of the people in the civil rights movement, like John Lewis, were college students at the time. In fact, the king, not LeBron, the king, Dr. King, led the Montgomery boycott when he was 26 years old. He gave his famous I Have a Dream speech when he was 34. He won the Nobel Peace Prize at 35, and he died at 39. So you may think I have time to give back and make a difference, but let me get mine first. You don't know what's in store for you, but you do know that with your degree comes obligations. And a lot of those obligations are to make life easier and fairer for those that come behind you. It's not about party. It's not about politics. And I want you to hear this too, because it's certainly not about profits. And it's not about just making money. It's really about having a purpose. And if you're ever searching for that purpose, you can go back to what Dr. Verrett has said over and over again about making society more just and making society more humane. That's what life is about. That's the purpose that you are living for. And one of my Morehouse brothers and dear friends who's also on Xavier's campus, Dr. Calvin Mackey, talks often about thermometers versus thermostats. And you all are at Xavier, best science school in the country, so I know you know the difference. So you can be a thermometer, which simply records the environment. It's just going to tell you it's 68 degrees. It's nothing more than a monitor. Or you can be a thermostat. See, a thermostat will monitor the situation. A thermostat will say it's 68 degrees, but a thermostat will say, but I want it to be 73 degrees, so I'm going to apply some heat to make it like I want it to be. So the question becomes, if we look back through society, who were some of the thermostats? Abraham Lincoln was a thermostat who decided that slavery as an institution was immoral and ended it. Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerner were thermostats because they decided that not allowing African Americans to vote without knowing how many bubbles were in a bar of soap was also immoral. Dr. Charles Drew was a thermostat who realized that you couldn't have gains in science without having the ability to have blood transfusions. Nelson Mandela was a thermostat. He spent 27 years in prison trying to make sure that African Americans in Africa had fair and equal treatment, and then came out and became president. Patrick Taylor an unknown oil guy in Louisiana decided that he would go to Livingston High School and tell the kids at Livingston that my dream for you all is that if you maintain a 2.5 and you make an 18 or 19 on the ACT, it's for you to go to college for free, and I'm putting up $100 million to make it happen, and that's how TOPS was found. He was a thermostat. Dr. King was a thermostat. He convinced the world to buy into his dream of how the country should be. And finally, Rosa Parks was a thermostat. She sat down and the whole country stood up. So as you continue through your life, ask yourself, do I want to be a thermometer or do I want to be a thermostat? And when you make that decision, let your will and your conscience be your guide to how you live your life. And if you're ever searching for something to remind you of what you should be doing with your life, think no further than your alma mater. Think no further than what you will sing today. And think about it. So as you continue through life, whenever in doubt, remember, Xavier University, let her ever be your guide and lead you on the way through life's journey onward, upward to the eternal day. Class of 2017, congratulations, make a difference, and make the world the way you want it to be. Congratulations.